Hi everyone, welcome back to Harp and Guitar, People and Music. So today I thought I'd do something a little different here and I'd break out a few of books from my collection regarding blues and blues subject matter and give a few recommendations on a couple of reads. Over the years, a lot of people have asked me, man, Whiskey, how do you know so much about this? Where do you gain all this knowledge from, about the blues, about all of these singers and songwriters and the subject matter? Well, a lot of it in part is because of the passion that I have for the music and those that created this music. But a lot of it also was me just doing my own research over the past 25 years or so. Just doing a lot of legwork and collecting a lot of old records, listening to the subject matter, cross-referencing it with historical books, and for example, you listen to Leadbelly songs from the 1930s when he's talking about some of the political climate. Then you research that with for books written about that time, and you can see how there's a correlation. But a lot of it also comes from the extensive amount of reading that I've done, from the massive amount of work that went into a great body of books written by some fantastic authors, blues researchers, writers, guys that have been looking into this since the 40s and the 50s, in some cases right up to present day, still getting in there and researching, exploring, making field trips down south, looking for long-lost artifacts, if you will, of the blues. A lot of them have written some great books, and that's what I wanted to recommend today. Now, one of the first ones I wanted to talk about was a book by Rick Coaster. Now, Rick Coaster was a famous old blues record collector from New York, but he was also a writer and researcher. And this book, entitled Louisiana Music, is a fantastic read. As it says here on the cover, it's a journey from R&B to Zydeco, jazz to country, blues to gospel, and Cajun music to swamp pop. It explores carnival music and beyond. It's a fantastic read, so I would recommend that if you can get your hands on it. Most of these in paperback form actually aren't that expensive. You can get a slightly used copy for under $10. Another one is called The Delta Blues, The Life and Times of the Mississippi Masters Who Revolutionized American Music. It's by Gioia. I'm sorry, I'm butchering it. Tough name to pronounce, but an excellent book to read. It's called The Delta Blues. And he talks about a lot of the famous fellows like B.B. King and Howlin' Wolf, but also a lot of guys that you may not have heard of. Anything written by Robert Palmer. No, not the singer. Different Robert Palmer. Anything written by Robert Palmer is essential. This is just one of the books that I have by him called Blues and Chaos. It's just a collection of some of his music writings over his career, and I think he's written probably at least 5 or 6 books. So anything with Robert Palmer. And speaking of anything written by someone, Paul Oliver. Paul Oliver has got an extensive library of books that he's written regarding blues, gospel, jazz. He's a field researcher, a writer, as I've mentioned. And now his content and his subject matter covers many decades. He's one of the ones that covers from the 30s and 40s right up through to the 70s. This is a great read here. Barrel House Blues, Location Recordings and the Early Traditions of the Blues. I've got another one here. Paul Oliver, The New Grove, Gospel, Blues, and Jazz. Sort of a reference book. Very interesting. And The Story of the Blues, Paul Oliver. A lot of his books actually have some great glossy photographs, rare pictures taken by him and other researchers and field researchers and writers. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this great read by Roy Carr, Century of Jazz. Jazz and blues are like brothers, and there's a lot of musicians that, especially in the early days, the 30s, 40s, there's a lot of musicians that sort of were able to weave in and out of both scenes, the blues scene and the jazz scene. So a few recommendations there. As well, I've got some autobiographical writings here, one by Peter Grelnick, who again is another very accomplished blues writer and researcher. This one is Searching for Robert Johnson. It looks like it's a small read, but it's actually very interesting and very well researched, very in-depth. And staying on with Robert Johnson, Escaping the Delta by Elijah Wald. And he discusses Robert Johnson and some of the earlier influences of Robert himself. So, fantastic read. This is an autobiography about one of my favorites, about the Howlin' Wolf. And Moanin' at Midnight, The Life and Times of Howlin' Wolf. So, great read there. And my main man, Mr. Buddy Guy. When I Left Home, My Story. Written by Buddy Guy and David Ritz. And this is a great read because he starts off discussing his childhood and his early childhood influences right up into present day. And this was released about 5 or 6 years ago now. So yeah, very interesting read. So there you have it. Just a few recommendations on some fantastic blues source material for you. Some of the books that I have in my collection. And definitely some interesting subject matter. So let us know what you think in the comment section below, and don't forget to like the video and share and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks again for swinging by harp and guitar, people and music. Take care, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye. Gioia. It's very... I screwed that up, I'm sure, but it's G-O-I. Or sorry, G-I-O-I-A. I'm sorry, I'm butchering it. Tough name to pronounce, but an excellent book to read. So, some great reads there. A couple of other recommendations as well. Sort of autobiographical. Gioia. 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 Staying on with Robert Johnson. Gioia.